All right, I was thinking about doing this as a live stream, but I didn't want to make it go too long. But this video is going to be basically a tribute, I guess, to the past 4 years, and unfortunately, an acknowledgement that yes, unfortunately, and I'm not gloating here, unfortunately, I was correct. If you watched my stream from earlier this week with James Kelly, no, there was no grand scheme at the end to keep Trump in the presidency that was feasible, right? When you depend on other people for your survival, it's just not going to happen. And I think this goes for Donald Trump. I think it goes for each and every person in the world. And I made this thumbnail that you see behind me on the screen. These are two moments that I think encapsulate really why it was important to have this man in the White House over the past 4 years, and unfortunately, how we're going to learn again what it was that put him there in the first place. Like, things don't happen in a vacuum, right? Even Jimmy Dore, who is a huge opponent of Donald Trump, and Glenn Greenwald, they acknowledge, people on the left, that in their words, Trump is the symptom, not the disease. And I think that those of us that are, right wing, or, right and left don't even make sense anymore as definitions, but those of us that are were supporters of the president, know that there was a real reason that people turned to him. That people stormed the Capitol is unfortunate, but I do believe that that type of dedication is probably rare among political figures. For those people that were bona fide Trump supporters, that were engaged in that, which I do believe ended up hurting, or it didn't help for sure, any effort to get America to move forward and, I guess, address this issue of the division that the country has gone under. No, I don't think that the Capitol Hill riot helped that. But I will say that you will never see anyone do that for Joe Biden, at least not someone who is not required to do that because they're, some sort of, they're a U.S. government law enforcement person or something like that. But ordinary citizens would never do that for Joe Biden. Ordinary citizens would never do that for Kamala Harris. And the fact is that over the next few years, you're going to see that we're going to be living in a society, and we have been living in that society for a while, but it's going to be more and more readily apparent, where there is a class of people that they're connected. They're connected through institutions. They're connected through the bureaucracy. They're connected through their culture to the leadership, to the regime, as I would call it now. The regime it's not even a Biden regime, because people know that he is really just a pawn of the people that he's appointing. You saw yesterday, if you're paying attention, the mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh, was appointed to be labor secretary, right? A guy who was involved in labor racketeering when he was mayor of Boston, when he was a union organizer there. You have Gina Raimondo, who is she I believe was a major, investment banker before she was governor of Rhode Island. She's going to be commerce secretary. But in any case, not to get too far from the topic, we are going to talk about why you shouldn't regret, if you were involved or if you just supported Trump as a candidate or as the president. I don't think that you're going to be free of suffering over the next few years. I can already see what's happening, what they're calling to happen. And unfortunately, it could get worse. It could end up having blowback for the people like Nancy Pelosi that are calling for a full impeachment and removal, and people who are calling for lists of supporters and lists of enablers and things like that. they should be careful what they wish for, because for every reaction for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's a law not only in physics but in many other uh, in many other different theaters of existence, right? So before I keep going, I do want to tell you to absolutely subscribe to me on BitChute. BitChute, I've been growing there, even though with the lack of time that I haven't even been sharing the videos on Minds or Gab or anywhere else. By the way, I've been banned on Facebook for 7 out of the past 12 months. So I could, like, even if I was sharing there, which I normally don't anymore because there's no point, I can't anymore because I'm banned virtually as soon as I get unbanned. Something happens and I get banned again. So absolutely find me on BitChute. You can find me on Odyssey. Here's, of course, usually in the morning I listen to Sticks, Hex, and Hammer. But you can find me at Bold Like a Leopard. There's two different channels. One's called Razor Ray McCoy. The other one is just called Bold Like a Leopard. You can also find me on Rumble. So those are three platforms that as of right now are free of censorship, and I anticipate, one of them could seriously become, I guess, an alternative. But that's for a different day. I do encourage you to follow me there so you get notifications. And you usually can get that through email or even through your phone app if you are able to get the phone app, of course. For sure, you can get it for Rumble. Now, where are we going today? The fact of the matter is that Donald Trump, as the president of the United States, he had so many challenges thrown in his way that unfortunately, I don't think that him as the president could withstand the institutional resistance against him. And I say the institutional resistance because I think that that was ultimately even stronger than the social and cultural resistance that was presented to him by the media and entertainment and academia and within corporations. Those I think were on top of it, which certainly didn't help. I think it is unbelievable that in the 21st century, you have corporations acting on with total political bias the way that it's happening today. I couldn't imagine it as I was a kid. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it always was like that. But I don't remember during the 1990s that you had corporations pulling within their own corporate structure to force employees to either support Bill Clinton or Bob Dole. So that is a totally new issue. What I will say is you have to remember all of the dumpster fires that arrived, that Donald Trump arrived to, right? And think about it this way. He is leaving the presidency with unprecedented media opposition, with unprecedented legal issues that could greet him when he leaves office because of the way that the judicial system has pursued him, the way that the intelligence community has continually pursued him, and yet we no longer have various wars in the Middle East. Think about it this way. To my knowledge, the worst violence that happened in the Middle East was largely attributed to a war in Yemen that unfortunately he did not end, right? But it's a war in Yemen that he inherited from Barack Obama. A war in Yemen, mind you, that Barack Obama helped to cause by supporting the Arab Spring, right? Or I guess supporting regime change during the Arab Spring, right? The other major bloodshed that happened during his term was, of course, the war on ISIS. And that was a war that he successfully won. A war, by the way, that Barack Obama also was responsible for the start of, and that he basically fumbled for the first. I think it started in 2013 or 2012, and Barack Obama basically allowed two different countries in the Middle East, at least, to be almost like engulfed by a fanatical jihadist movement that the U.S. had helped to arm through its relationships with proxies, again involved in regime change. What did Donald Trump do? He did act to stop all of it. And he actually acted to stop delivering aid to the quote unquote rebels in Syria. And he said, this is enough. We are going to win the war on ISIS. And then we're going to remove the troops. And he did remove them. He tried to. I guess they had to keep some of them there. And why did they have to keep some of them there? Because one of the Defense Department's own people admitted that he lied and told Donald Trump that the withdrawal was going ahead, and he basically had deceived him. Think about it this way: the world, the media, is less upset at a defense official lying to the president of the United States about withdrawing troops from an area where they're at risk, right? The war is already won, but they're involved in other side conflicts that the U.S. has no interest in, and they're more obsessed with Trump himself. So that really is the problem, that we don't recognize the success. The success is the victory over ISIS. The success is that we no longer have people having their heads sawn off in Syria, whether they're U.S. citizens or Syrians or Iraqis or Kurds or whoever it may be. It's no longer commonplace. And unfortunately, we can't fix the situation in Syria because we're not the Syrians. And that's the whole point, that the American people can't recognize the success, and they can't recognize that this was a moment that we should have celebrated, what Trump said here.
We've been fighting for a long time in Syria. I've been president for almost 2 years, and we've really stepped it up. And we have won against ISIS. We've beaten them, and we've beaten them badly. We've taken back the land, and now it's time for our troops to come back home. I get very saddened when I have to write letters or call parents or wives or husbands of soldiers who have been killed fighting for our country. It's a great honor. We cherish them, but it's heartbreaking. There's no question about it. It's heartbreaking. Now we've won. It's time to come back. They're getting ready. You're going to see them soon. These are great American heroes. These are great heroes of the world because they fought for us, but they've killed ISIS, who hurts the world. And we're proud to have done it. And I'll tell you, they're up there looking down on us. And there is nobody happier or more proud of their families to put them in a position where they've done such good for so many people. So our boys, our young women, our men, they're all coming back, and they're coming back now. We won, and that's the way we want it, and that's the way they want it.
And to think that one of the main things that they were opposing Donald Trump for in the current year was doing the same thing in Afghanistan. Why? Because they don't want American troops to be closer to home, to be out of harm's way, to be in a situation where they're not involved in wars that have nothing to do with American security, that are not we can't sort out the situation in Syria, just like we couldn't sort out the situation in Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia. We couldn't sort out the situation in Somalia. We couldn't sort out the situation in Iraq. And we couldn't sort out the situation in Afghanistan because we don't run any of those countries. And the other image that I have up is the USMCA. And that's another thing. Americans, they don't appreciate really what was accomplished here. The president who is leaving office, Donald Trump, was inaugurated with the expectation that he would probably have one of the worst relationships with his neighbors, Canada and Mexico, of any president in recent memory. And what did he end up doing? Pulling out a new trade deal with both of them and new trade deals with other countries like Japan. And that really is something that people ought to appreciate. And I think that people who are clear-headed do appreciate it. They know that that's really what was needed. You needed a person who was willing to actually sit down across from these other leaders and say, We want terms that are favorable for the people that elected me, not favorable to the three of us sitting here who are already well off and are connected and will never have to want for food and sustenance and the rest of our lives. Our children are already in the best schools that can be. This isn't why you do trade deals. You don't do trade deals in order to make things better for the people who are already doing well. You do trade deals in order to make it better for the people in each country that need that need a fairer system, right? They need a fairer system as a nation, right? When a trade deal is done in order to favor major corporations and the wealthy in America, it causes more resentment at capitalism, at these corporations, right? Instead, we did trade deals that raised wages in Mexico and lowered tariffs in both Mexico and Canada. And the truth of the matter is that, it's frustrating to me to see people who are, I guess, still with this whole mindset that, stick with the plan. Where all the other things, I can't mention the movement that they're talking about, but they have the one WWGA, if you know what I'm talking about. So people like that, and I know some people like that, and I respect people's right to believe in things that they want to believe in. But you're wrong, and you're provably wrong at this point. And for 4 years, I ignored that movement because I knew that they weren't really showing anything that was tangible. And they're going to continue. Some of them are going to continue beyond this. They're going to continue to believe that someone else is moving the chess pieces behind the scenes, and that even when Donald Trump is out of office and God knows where he's going to be, that somehow he is working in order to bring everything back. It's not happening because, unfortunately, this is something that you have to understand in life. Okay, other people don't make life better for you, right? If you don't do anything, you have to oftentimes do the things that are worth changing the reality for yourself, changing them for the people around you. And Donald Trump had that attitude. He was a person who did things as a businessman and as a family leader, in his own family. And many times, yeah, he was a person, clearly had major flaws in his character, right? Cheating on both his first and second wife, and having those marriages fall apart. I guess during the early 90s, he went bankrupt. And there were many, many times in his life that he was basically somebody that you could have written off. And he did come back. And nobody knows whether he can come back from this. Some people are saying that he can come back in 2024. But the bottom line here is that he did more already for the things that he believed in than almost anyone that you know. And as someone who in 2016, I voted for him. In 2020, I actually went out and canvassed for him. I handed out literature for him. I talked with other voters about it. I discussed ways for people to have their vote counted when I went out to canvass for the vote. And I told people at the time not to believe in mail-in balloting. Go in, vote early like I did. And I'm in Ohio, right? And I said to people, you have to do as much as you can to ensure the future ahead of you. And unfortunately, it did not happen. I think I put in the best effort that I could. And, most of the time, obviously, you always know that you could have done more, or you could have done something differently. But I think I put in the best effort that I could in order to get Donald Trump reelected, because it wasn't because I think he's this mystical being who's going to save the world. But I do know the price of having people who are like the ones that opposed him. People like Adam Schiff, people like Barack Obama, people like Stacey Abrams in power. And that is really the reason that you work for someone to get elected, that you fight for the change that you believe in, because you want to do the least harm. You want to help the world avoid as much suffering as possible. And unfortunately, we're not going to avoid it. In fact, we're probably going to get a lot more of it. And I think people need to be realistic about it and stop trying to say, "Oh, this is going to be, we're going to have some sort of revolution or whatever." You don't know that. First of all of the things that they're trying to do now, the Democrats, you're starting to see them try to, I guess, get revenge for the past 4 years. We are going to have to see exactly how far they will go. But if you weren't prepared for it until now, that is on you, right? They were saying this for the past 4 years, and you decided that you would trust that someone else would take care of that. Who was that person? Donald Trump. He can't do it anymore, right? And to be honest, you should have never believed that he could do it. Another person. This is something that transcends any president, right? And Donald Trump, of all people, is the best example of it. People were getting hurt under his presidency. People were getting beaten in the streets by various political groups, Antifa and BLM. People were getting their shops burned down. What could he do about it? He couldn't do anything about it, because as the president, if you are not on the same you're not on the same wavelength as the people who are your underlings, the people who they're technically your underlings. They work for you, but in reality, they work you too. People like Alex Vindman. If you're not on the same wavelength as the people who actually run the system, the people who are quote unquote the deep state, the people who are the intelligence community, the people who are the bureaucracy, the entrenched real government of America that never leaves, that isn't elected, that you don't know, they're a faceless idiot somewhere in a building in Washington, D.C. If you're not on the same wavelength as them, then nothing is going to get done. And that's really the tragedy, that so many people were depending on the president to do something. And that's including people who were, staunch right-wingers. They were telling him, impose martial law, send in all the troops, all of those things. And they themselves were willing to do nothing in order to help themselves. Those of you that did not purchase a firearm over the past 4 years and you don't have one, those of you that are living in an area where you don't really have access to non-perishable goods if you need them, or you don't have, or you haven't prepared yourself for shortages, those of you that are heavily leveraged into vulnerable industries in terms of your stock portfolio, those of you that were basically living the past 4 years asleep and completely out to lunch and thinking that someone else will make it better, whether you believed it was going to be Trump or whether you believe it was going to be whatever Democrat came after him, you have nobody to complain to after today, because the people who are going to take power now, they're not accountable to you. And the person who's leaving office, Donald Trump, was at least someone who did listen to you, but he couldn't do whatever you needed. Like the idea that the president is somebody who should ensure your security. The police are the people who ensure your security. That let's say your parents ensure your security. Even if let's say you're a child. Those things, unfortunately, are only true in the most loose sense. Meaning, and this is important, that each person every day is responsible for their own well-being, their own health, their own security, and their own their own welfare, right? Their own earnings. That's why they're called earnings. They're not called givings. So unfortunately, there is a class of people in America, and that includes many people in the Trump camp. And look, I'm not saying this in order to criticize just you. I'm saying it in order to criticize the mentality. We all have that mentality once in a while that we deserve something. Therefore, when we don't get it, it's society's fault. It's God's fault. It's the fault of the person we're depending on. You know, grow up, right? We have to move towards a society where people are looking to do things instead of wait for things to be done. And that really is the failure that I regret. I don't regret the cause at all. I don't regret supporting the man. I don't regret everything that I learned, everything that I wrote about, everything that I investigated under the Trump presidency. I regret the failures that he had. I regret the things that he did that were wrong. I regret the Syria, the Syria bombing of 2018 and 2017, right? The campaign that really didn't solve anything, something that the media actually celebrated. So ironically, one of the things that the media said that was positive at the time that he did, I thought was bad, and I criticized him heavily for it. And a lot of people who were alternative media people were deeply critical of him, because those are the people who actually believe in the reasons that he actually got elected, right? So what we're talking about here is this message to the people who they fought for whatever they could get when he was in power, and they're willing to keep fighting for something else. My message is this, okay? Yes, this is a dark period for us. It's a dark period for other people too. The people who oppose Donald Trump, they're about to figure out that soon you're not going to be able to blame him for what's coming up ahead, right? You're not going to be able to blame him for the tyranny, for the lack of security, for the health issues that are going to come as a result of these lockdowns that are continuing. And you're not going to be able to blame him for the fact that you're not going to have a government working for you at all. You didn't, by the way, you still did not have one when he was, did your local government, did they respond to Donald Trump if they opposed him by making your services better? Your local services, did they become better under Donald Trump as a response to all the problems that supposedly he was causing? Did they do their jobs better for you? They didn't. But they're very, very likely still in office, right? And I can say that for sure. I mean, the mayor of my city over here is the same mayor. He was the mayor under President Bush, and he's still the mayor now, and he's an awful mayor. And Frank Jackson. And people do not care, because the actual change that they want is something that they have no intention of actually accomplishing, right? Now, for those of you that are looking for comfort, don't look for it in the news, okay? Look for it in the things that you do day to day. Look for it if you have a job that you like, try to enjoy that job as much as you can. If you have kids that they're on the soccer team, or you want to have kids, or you have kids that are, they have hobbies that you enjoy. Enjoy it more with them. Spend more time with your children. Spend more time with your friends, having beers. Make dinner with them, have barbecues. Get to know a few of your neighbors. And by the way, if all of your neighbors are political, and you can't get along with them, unfortunately, maybe you're living in the wrong neighborhood. Unfortunately, it might be time to move. But if you're living with neighbors who are reasonable, and I consider like a lot of my neighbors to be fairly decent people, I don't know them that well, but maybe it's time to get to know some of the people that are living next to you, the people who are actually closest to you, not just the people who are interacting with you online and things like that. Social media can only enhance your interaction with humans only as much. If you have, somebody that's special in your life, you have the love, like I do, the love of a beautiful woman, someone who actually cares about you when you wake up in the morning, somebody who wants to call you and, just ask about things that are going on with you during your day. Enjoy that if you can, right? Don't look at it as if you're going to be able to change what you hear on the news or whatever. But whatever you can change, whatever you can, and if you're somebody who wants to do something, wants to be investigative, wants to look for the truth, that's where you go, and do it correctly too. Don't spread things that are incorrect, like those people that have been basically talking about trust the plan, something is in place, everything's going to work out okay. Everything does not work out okay, right? It's the same as being a sports fan, right? Those people that believe going into the series that the Celtics are going to upset the Bucks because of reasons, right? You're making predictions. You're not making actual, real prognostications based on things that you can be sure of, right? Predictions are prone to being wrong. So do whatever you can. Like I said, cherish the people that you are able to have a good relationship with in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to do anything. In fact, it probably would be better if you enjoyed life with the people who are not political, the people that you have common interests with. Maybe you like to do shop projects with. Maybe it's people that, if you like doing gardening, maybe open a community garden, right? Do things that are enjoyable for you, that help you cope with the other things that aren't going well. And if things reach a real crisis, unfortunately, you might have to actually work to defend yourself. And I know that a lot of you who might be watching, right? The few people that I know, some of you have already done that. So I'm not telling you to do things that you've already done and speak as if I'm doing it better than you. But for those of you that are basically living in a situation where you depend on someone else who you do not know to make your life better, get ready to be disappointed. And also to the religious people out there, and they were saying trust in God. God would not let us that. Look, God, it does not owe people results for things that they don't really work for, right? And this goes for you, no matter how religious you are, what religion you are. Whether you're Seventh Day Adventist, whether you're Catholic, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Muslim, whatever. I don't care, right? The reality is that people are able to have free will for a reason, and that free will sometimes leads to unfortunate results. And the people who have been acting over the past 4 years the way they have, they're going to get those results whether they like them or not. That's about it. I hope you have a good weekend. And please like, share, and subscribe if you do like my content. And also subscribe to me once again on BitChute and on Odyssey and Rumble to hear more of these thoughts and reactions. And I'll talk to you later. Have a splendid day.